Welcome, evolutionaries. It is episode 15, and I thought this was a special time because yesterday the federal government announced one of their election promises. So we're going to actually talk about that a little bit today. Our special guest is Brent Williams from Evolve Green. Yes, I know. I'm from Evolve Green too. So we're gonna actually talk about this wonderful new interest-free loan. I'm gonna bring Brent on. Thank you for coming today, Brent. I really appreciate it. Isn't this incredible? They're coming through with this promise. What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's definitely a good thing for everybody involved, and for people who aren't involved yet, it's going to create a lot of jobs for sure.
It's incredible because it's really anything that saves energy, produces energy, or stores energy, or all of the above. So that's insulation, that's window companies, that's of course solar systems, storage systems, solar thermal systems, heat pumps. Wow. I just can't say enough wow because this is really going to put people back to work. I don't think the Canadian public totally appreciates how this is going to be wonderful for not just the homeowners to access interest-free loans. I mean, this is amazing, right? Yes, they have to qualify for those $40,000 loans, but I mean, to not be pulling the interest on them, that is just amazing. So that they don't have to go, into, more hawk for just trying to improve their home's efficiency, which is the goal of Canada. And now it really shows. And they really want to put people back to work. And so many of our industries are hurting right now, when it comes to this. So what do you think about that? Do you like I see some fantastic local, like in every local area is going to be impacted by this.
It's going to save people like a lot of money, and it's going to create new jobs. It's going to grow our sector as big as it deserves to be, and it's yeah.
I think it's amazing. And I know you were talking about putting some more things on you were considering a heat pump and some more solar for your home. So is this something that like this just took you back and now you're going to be able to do this? Is this amazing or what?
Yeah, well, like with the way interest rates right now, I just refinanced my home and got a lower interest rate, and I was going to
That's
put, and
right.
like just a few days ago, I was talking to you about some more, putting a heat pump and or an Arctic heat pump rather, and some solar panels on my roof, and I was gonna have to take out a loan at it would have been about 2% interest on my mortgage, but now with this interest-free loan, like it's great new opportunity for me and for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I really like how you're going about it because, solar is only one piece of the equation. And when we talk about how renewable works together, the heat pumps save, we're talking about 30% or more of the energy for heating costs and cooling costs, which is pretty significant. And then if we, top that up with a small solar system to also produce maybe an offset of 10, 15, even 20%, you've got almost a 50% savings in energy right there. And you won't have to, spend anything on the interest rate in order to get that done, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's going to save a lot of money in the long term, and with solar, what we're talking about is a long term. It's a long term investment, and you get back exponentially what you pay for it.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to businesses, though, it doesn't cover that. So it does cross over for landlords on this new interest-free loan, I noticed. So it's going to be available for landlords and for residential customers. But the one thing we should talk about with businesses, you have actually got a credit anyways because this is 100% write-off for you in the year that you purchase anything that saves energy. produces energy and stores energy. So it's not just solar systems. So anytime you're doing any of those three things, you can do the 100% expensing. So it's really fantastic for, some of the gas stations are renovating now, and they are putting in smart chargers, and they're putting in other things to save energy or produce energy, and now even store energy, because a gas station that can't pump gas because the grid is out, not so much, right? We've seen whole communities be out for up to a week not so very long ago in that last big snowstorm in 2019, right? Portage la Prairie, I think, was down even longer. Some of the areas were out longer for sure. And they didn't have gas for their generators to run even simple things in their homes, but it was already October, so it was getting kind of cold. So it's really storage, I think, is the next big thing coming. Are you seeing more people asking for storage systems?
I mean, like it's a scary situation for a lot of people. I could feel like the winter's looming and you don't have any heat. Like, what are you gonna do? But as far as have I had a lot more people asking? Yeah. There has been a little bit of an upturn in the people asking for a battery backup system, and I have to teach them about how it works. Because if you have an existing on-grid system and someone wants a battery backup, you can't exactly do that right off the hop. You need to change some of the elements in your system too.
Right, absolutely. Absolutely. And it has to be balanced right too. People have to have a good understanding of what will run and what will not run when the grid is present,
Mhm.
or not present, I should say, right? So,
Yeah.
but one of the other things too, I think people don't really understand about Manitoba is that with hydro, the reason why they don't pay you very much in order to buy energy, so if you've got a solar system, you have a bi-directional meter, and you're going to use all your energy, and it's going to also sell to the grid when you've used all the energy and it still has excess. They only give you about 3 cents a kilowatt, and I think a lot of people, they want to go all or nothing, but really how we design today, like, did you want to just talk about that a little bit? Like, we're designing a lot smaller systems today in order to, increase the return for investment on this system. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, like when someone calls in, we try to size the system accordingly so that you don't sell back too much because right now the rate is a little over 10 cents after tax to buy power from hydro, Manitoba Hydro, but we're only selling it back to them for like 2.9 cents, 3 cents out of that 10 cents. And I mean, a lot of people think that's not fair, so we try to avoid that as much as possible. It's unavoidable in the high production months of the summer, but uh, you're still selling back about like on average 20%. And but the good thing about that is you get to write off 20% of your invoice. Whatever percentage you sell, you get to write it off on your taxes. You form like a little business, even if you're residential, you don't have a business, you form a business, and you get to write off that percentage, which is a significant savings as well.
That's true. That's a good point. Right. That's another avenue for savings. So when we do this, we call this load shaving, and it's going to be different depending on the type of heating and cooling systems you have, and whether or not you have a pool, and all of these other factors that go into play. But for an average gas heat home, I mean, we're looking at 50% is usually, 40 or 50% offset is what we're looking at. And those, if we're talking 1,200 square feet gas heat home, with some AC in the summer, we've got a system that's going to be roughly 4 or 5 kilowatt, right? So it's pretty doable.
Yeah, and those don't cost that much at all. Like relatively speaking, of course, like people get scared at the big numbers that are involved in the initial investment, but
Right.
you're looking at saving like 10, 15 times what you're spending over the next 30 years, and even more beyond that.
Absolutely. And there's no way to foresee how much hydro is going to go up, but we do know that it has been going up 3 to 6% a year. We do know that they asked for 8%, right? But they didn't get it
Mm.
over the next 5 years, right? So that was their goal, but that didn't happen through the pub.
Well,
So sorry, go ahead.
I said that's good.
Yeah, it is. But at the same time, we even saw an increase in the middle of this pandemic in December when the worst bills were about to hit. They increased December 1. They went up, what, 3%. So, it's a little bit frustrating. And I think to fortify your energy and your storage and really your energy, taking control of your energy, um, this can mitigate all those forward costs. So let's say down the road, this Manitoba Hydro privatizes. I mean, we need to talk about that because then it's going to go to what it naturally should be. And let's talk about what that might be. So if we look across over onto Saskatchewan's side, they're 14 cents a kilowatt right now. And that's not out the box. They're even higher over in Ontario, all through, some of the other areas. Now, they're trying to say that ours is cheaper to produce, but actually now with the new power plants, it's not. We're looking at 11 or 10 cents as a cost a kilowatt to produce. So now we're into subsidized power currently because they're only charging us, with taxes about 10 cents a kilowatt. So it's, a situation that it's held by the pub. So you have, I always try to look at it from all angles, like where should it be? Even if it's not, it doesn't matter, right? Because subsidized power one day will stop. They have to come into line or you're not a business, you're not profitable, you
Hmm.
know. So this is one way you can actually fortify your future by doing a small load shaving solar system. We don't want to sell to the grid that much. In fact, we have systems that we actually don't have to sell to the grid. We can just produce what you want and then it can store off into batteries and then just shut down if you are in a position where you just don't want to sell to the grid. Most don't do that. We call that a grid assist. And so in those situations, it would have a battery backup employed. And these battery backups are really nice because what it allows a lot of these solar systems to do, and we can retrofit this too, is it allows them to produce energy when the grid is out without sending it to the grid. So it's very safe and it gives you the energy you need as well as storing energy. So when the grid goes out and let's say it's nighttime, you still have that stored energy that you can use from. It may not be the same as amount of power as you would have had if the grid were on, but it's certainly going to give you the lights in your refrigerator and your sump pump. And if you have a CPAP machine or an oxygen machine, a lot of people are home these days. They don't want to be in hospital. So, there's a lot of things that need to run in a home these days.
Hmm.
We still always recommend having another way to heat your home, though. I mean, this is not something that you won't be doing an electric furnace. But if you have a gas furnace or a propane furnace or a wood boiler, um, any type of heating that is lower electrical draw, but just requires maybe for the fans or the pumps, battery backup is an excellent way to go.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, the heat pumps, the cold air heat pumps could probably run off battery
true,
too, just not the backup.
true. That's true. There's two components, just like geothermal. And I think this is where a lot of people get confused about heat pumps too, is they think that there's something completely different. Well, it's just a heat pump. And so is geo. Geo is a heat pump. The geothermal system is taking its energy from the ground, the differential pressure, temperature of the ground, and the energy from that. So now when you have a heat pump, it is kind of the same thing, but it's doing it from the air. So it is just taking it from a different source. And there is energy in the air all the way down to probably minus 200 something. But
Yeah, like absolute
really,
zero, right?
absolute zero, right? So, but, but these heat pumps really do quite well up until about minus 30 now. These Arctic heat pumps are really quite good at drawing the energy out. They do come with a battery backup. I always recommend battery backup, or sorry, battery backup,
Back
electric
up boiler.
backup.
Yeah.
Yeah, electric boiler. Yeah, usually it's electric in coil heat. So this heat you can actually turn that off. I recommend that if for the geothermals too. Some of the older geos, particularly geothermal, the older ones with the electric backups, they tend to come on and sensor the temperature, but it turns it on momentarily. So it's done its surge of energy. So you're
Mm,
actually consuming a bunch of energy just while it's doing that little check and then it shuts itself off. So I
yeah.
always tell people with an older geothermal, particularly, to shut that off.
Turn it off
And
until it gets really cold. Yeah.
if it's really cold, that's when you turn it on. And you can feel that in your house, right? So you can feel, oh, yeah, no, it's not keeping up right now. So, and then you can just go turn that breaker on. And usually you're in a cold snap for a few weeks and then it's kind of done, right? So,
Yeah.
so it's not like it's heavy duty maintenance. You're going to know. You're going to start feeling like, hey, it's a little cold here. And in the summer, it's not needed anyways, right? So, I guess one of the biggest things I know, I had this preconceived notion of heat pumps for sure. And I don't know if you did. Did you know that they cool? Because that was news to me. I didn't know that. I thought they
Oh
only
yeah.
did
Yeah.
heating.
Works both ways.
I know, but
Yeah.
it was something that I didn't know. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I
um,
saw the interview last week.
yeah, I know.
But
Like I was like, "Oh, okay." I mean, I knew Geo did, but I just assumed it was kind of different technology, right? So I knew we set them up to use them in pools, and I knew we were setting them up to use them in heating, but I actually didn't know they cooled. So I thought, it's kind of, not quite as good as Geo. And I thought that was the difference, right? But I mean, I always knew where they drew their energy from, of course.
yeah.
So I mean, that's wonderful news. That this combination is quite good for powering a home. And if you do have electric heat, we could employ something like an electric heat pump. The heat pump, of course, the Arctic heat pump, sorry, instead of that electric furnace. So there is a retrofit that goes right on there, that over the manifold, and then you don't have the heating coils anymore. So, next, I wanted to talk a little bit about solar thermal, which I wanted to get into after the break. So, if you'll just hang on, here's a word from our sponsor, Evolve Green.
Why go solar? It's not just for the environment, although that is a great reason. Did you know that when you install your new solar plant, you are only paying 7 cents per kilowatt? That's right, 7 cents! Solar is now cheaper than buying electricity, 25% cheaper than buying it from Manitoba Hydro. Going solar is different from any other investment you will make in your life, as you will retain the value on your roof. Solar does not depreciate like other investments do, and unlike a GIC, your investment will start paying you from day one. And when you choose to sell your home, well, you will get the cost of the solar back, as this investment rarely depreciates. When choosing solar, look for high-end products like microinverters with 10 to 25-year warranties. Make sure your installation is done by a professional. We are Evolve Green, and we are celebrating 12 years in the industry and can help you put your roof to work for you. Ask also about your options like battery backup for when the grid fails, and how about solar heaters to get rid of snow buildup. Are you a farm or a business? Did you know that your solar is a 100% tax write-off? Yes, that's right. You can write off all the cost for the solar in the year you purchased it. This is a perfect investment for any business. In Manitoba, the portion a resident customer sells to Hydro is also a tax write-off in the first year. Farms pay no PST on solar systems. We build, design, and supply the best in solar power for both on and off the grid. For experts you can trust, call or email Evolve Green today. 1-866-5-EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca.
Hi, welcome back, Evolutionaries. Here talking to Brent today. I'm Lorena, host of Evolution Greenworks, and we were talking about heat pumps and load shaving for solar systems, how we design them. But now I wanted to talk a little bit about solar thermal. And when we're talking about heat pumps and solar thermal, there's actually a green energy tax credit in Manitoba. So that green energy equipment tax credit is for anything that heats a liquid or a gas. So you actually get 10% back on your income tax when in the year that you purchase it. And so that's pretty exciting news. Another way to save energy out there, save money on your energy and save energy at the same time. So one of the things I think there's, they're kind of diverse. If you're talking about solar thermal, and there's a lot of different ways to do solar thermal. We at Evolve Green use evacuated tubes to save energy. So all solar thermal is a little bit higher maintenance, and it's something when we design it, we need to know the insulation of your home, what size square footage you are, how many people are in your home using water, if that's what your use is for. Because you can use solar thermal like heat pumps for pools, and you can use them for doing a manifold in your furnace to help offset how much heating is going on there, because it's kind of like a radiator in a way, if I want to describe it in layman's terms, right? That goes in the manifold. So it's a liquid to air heat exchange process that's happening, just like a radiator. For a pool, it's liquid to liquid because there's glycol in your system. So you would have liquid circulating on one side, and you would have the pool water circulating in the heat exchanger on the other side. So it would be what we call a liquid to liquid heat exchange process. That is becoming very common for people to do. That and heat pumps. Arctic heat pumps for pools is something that we're seeing more and more of every year. So everybody wants to save energy. It's expensive.
The heated floors too. Just running a bunch of pipes in the floors, and then you don't have to worry about getting cold feet anymore.
And that's kind of a direct retrofit for the solar thermal and for the Arctic heat pumps. Mm-hmm. And they can work together as well, because you can use those two technologies are very similar, and they can be adapted to run together. And then you get the benefit of both, because the solar thermal is like big heat pipes, and it's actually traveling the heat to the top of the manifold, and then it just circulates glycol here where the heat is gathered at the top of the manifold, and then it runs back and it stores it in a tank. So the tank looks like a hot water tank, but it has coils inside, and it's going to circulate the glycol from the roof in those coils and send it back up. The cooled glycol will then go back up to the roof and be reheated and come back down, and then keep warming the water in this tank. How do we get it out of the tank? Well, good question. There is a second coil in that tank. So the coil in that tank has the second coil, and that can be used for lots of things. Now, here's the cool thing about this. That second coil, not only can we tee into our Arctic heat pump, right, for a little extra energy out of there, but that can run your pool, that can be into the manifold in the furnace, and you just tee off seasonally. So you're switching from pool to furnace. So now it's heating your hot water, it's heating your pool, and it's offsetting whatever you've got for heating. So that could be an in-floor heat, that can be gas heat, that can be electric heat, or it can be an Arctic heat pump. So those are the ways you can use the solar thermal. Again, we have a lot of excess energy in the summer. So finding ways to use the heat from those solar thermals and not having to cover them up in the summertime is pivotal. But I wanted to talk about one more thing. When we design for greenhouses, a lot of the greenhouses being built out there, even the hemp ones, they can be employing some of these same technologies in order to cut probably by 80% their electricity consumption. There can be huge gains in switching technologies by having the in-floor heating system and the lighting system. So you would have some solar PV, you would have LED lighting, you would have the heat pump, and you would have some solar thermal employed. And this would reduce, up to 80% of the consumption of those buildings to grow food or hemp or whatever. So creating the heat and the hot water and all the other stuff that they need for that facility.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I never thought about that application before.
Yes, I've designed it. That's why I wanted to talk about it a little bit. So LED lighting is, just amazing when we talk about growing, though. It gets very specific. And I think they use a lot of phrases that are kind of all over the place. So you have the red, blue, and now you have the full spectrum lights. But basically, the bluer you get, you're into vegetative, almost green, and then you've got the reds is for blooming. A lot of that now can be gotten pretty cheaply, and they also have where you have the same lighting, but it actually literally just it's like a dimmer switch in a way to change between blooming and vegetative states, which is pretty interesting.
Just change it like slowly every day, just a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, as whatever it is that they're growing starts to get into that next stage, right? Another way to do it too, and some of those are closed off buildings, and utilizing natural light is a really great way to save energy as well, though. And there's definitely great ways to do that with some of the high quality windows and things that are out there. Like, they don't look like traditional greenhouses, but if we start talking about the cost of a building over time, so if you build it well first, yes, it's going to cost maybe 30 or 40% more, but it's going to save you 150 to 200% within that first 40 years. You know what I mean? You
Totally
get
worth it.
it's a pretty amazing investment if you start talking about it as a 20-year investment even. So even at, 25, 30 years, anything beyond 15 years, you're probably laughing when it comes to how much money will be coming back to you.
Yeah, just increases over time exponentially.
It really does. It really does. One of the things I love about what the federal government is doing with this interest-free loan, though, I love that it's hitting all these sectors. They really worded it very well, I thought. Like, did you see that? Like, it's actually very, very close to what they said as an election promise, which I thought was pretty cool. They haven't really changed any of the wording at all. Oh, got a cat's in the back here.
Mine's been underneath the whole time.
Welcome, Patches, our special guest. And you have Jinx with you today. Wonderful. Yeah. But I think one of the things that we should take away from this is that renewables do actually work best together. So take me through what you would do when you're just talking to a customer about doing a grid tie system. Like, what do you need to know?
Well, we need to know three main things. The first one is how much power do you use every year, or how much do you spend on power, and then we could figure it out or whatever. But the best is, you kind of zoomed out there. Anyway, the best is on your Manitoba Hydro My Bill. If you go online and you take a screenshot of your usage tab, and send that to us. Then it'll give us a monthly breakdown of everything we need to know exactly how big to build your system for the shortest ROI, the most benefit. And then the second thing we need to know is what kind of furnace you use. Because with an electric, we're trying to not offset the furnace. We're trying to offset everything but the furnace, because you don't use the furnace in the summer and you don't want to sell back as much, right? So we build with an electric furnace, we'll offset it to about 25%, 30%. With gas furnace, we'll offset it, like you said, about 40 to 50%. And with a heat pump, we'd probably do about the same, because it uses about, it uses more electricity than a gas furnace, but it'll be about 1/3 of the electricity total of an electric furnace. And then the third thing we need to know is we need our software uses an aerial view of your home, so we could actually run it through the software and show you what it's going to look like before it's actually up there. And I think that's a great tool that actually, I think you, Lorena, helped them develop that tool in the beginning. The one that we use, Solar Design Tool.
That's true, actually. That's actually true. So, because we were one of the only ones in the Canadian market using it initially, they used us like as feedback. So, in other words, if there was problems or anything like that, we would give them the feedback as to exactly where it was and what was going on and why it was wrong, or what have you. And we continue to have special privileges because of it, actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's because we helped develop that. Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, when we're talking about designing it right, I mean, all we're trying to do is maintain your return for investment. Some of the sneak peeks of what we know about Efficiency Manitoba releasing a rebate next year potentially is they've talked a lot about they don't really want people to sell back to the grid at the rate that they are right now. They would rather see you load shave as well. So it's pretty interesting. We do want to also impart that if you are building, there is actually still a rebate out there. It's the new home rebate for high efficiency homes, and it's up to $12,000. So definitely solar thermal, and it's for anything like that. So geo, heat pumps, solar thermal, exactly. So it's about getting to zero with that program. So the closer you get to zero, the more money you get back. And one of the cool things is with Gio Robinson over at Prairie House. He's the one who does the audits for the program, because you have to have an audit done on your home for energy, how high energy efficiency you are. The value of that is you actually get a stamp on your home, so it'll definitely give you the resale value down the road, because you'll be able to show somebody this is our rating, our energy rating, and this is why it makes sense to do this, because down the road in 10 years, it may not be heard of a lot here now, but in 10 years when you're selling this home, it's going to be huge, because with hydro continuing to go up, infrastructure is aging, and it's taking them longer sometimes to fix these things, especially after a major event. And one of the major events coming, though, is we've been in a solar minimum for the last 10 years. Now we're actually coming into a solar maximum. So what does that mean? That means that there's going to be a lot more solar flares going on. Now, what year was it? I want to say it was 2011 when the Quebec grid went down. Some parts of Quebec went down for up to 2.5 weeks from a solar flare. And, the Carrington event that took out all of the newly laid lines for communication at the time when it happened over 100 years ago, it's not anomalous. These are events that are naturally occurring, and they're caused by solar flares from the sun. So what does that impact? Well, it impacts things like telecommunications. It impacts power lines. It blows transformers. You end up with a lot more transformer fires. And as these things start rapid fire increasing, the things that need to be replaced when that happens. So these companies' ability to replace and keep on top of those things actually gets harder and harder, because how do they keep stock for anomalous events?
Mm.
It's not really going to happen, right?
Because
So,
most businesses don't want to have all this extra inventory, but then they need to have it in case something happens, right?
well, and can you know how much to have?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, that snowstorm was massive, and if it wasn't for a whole bunch of different levels of government kicking in some cash at the time, I mean, they didn't have all of that stuff to fix people, but yet they were out there. And I'm not going to say one bad word about our linesmen out there. Holy smokes, guys! They worked hard for people to get them up. I know, because even in my area, I drove past two of them. They were fighting the snow, two of them in the dark,
Hmm.
and there was like so many trees crumpled into this line.
Yeah, the
Like,
trees are crumpled, but they're still standing up straight. That's a good
exactly,
metaphor.
exactly. So they're trying to uncrumple these lines and not, and stay safe and get it fixed. And, it's still snowing on them. And, I mean, it was just, and there was two of them, like, so yeah, no, I can't say enough nice things about how hard these guys work or these people work. There's ladies out there too. These people work to try and keep power on in your home. They definitely do. But when it comes to fortifying your power and ensuring that you have your power for when you need it, especially if you have some special needs, like, you have oxygen requirements in your home. A lot of people are staying home. They're trying to stay out of the hospitals. They have their parents home these days with COVID. So they have a lot more medical equipment at home. And of course, CPAPs to sleep. This is something we hear about commonly. We're doing a lot of, like, for trailers. That's one of the common things that we're doing small solar systems for, is so as they can have CPAPs at night, where they're not allowed to run generators at night, right? For the noise levels.
Hmm.
So, I mean, it's definitely fortifying your energy, and understanding how your system works is a huge tool. And I see 5 years down the line, even, you're not going to consider building a house without more renewable energy, heat pumps, and backup for that home, the backup battery backups, because it's going to be integrated, number one, because a lot of more people will be driving the battery operated cars as well. So, and that's all going to play in.
Like,
It
yeah, like if you're buying a new home and you're taking out this massive mortgage that you're gonna take 25 years to pay off, and you're already spending 200,000, 400,000, 600,000 on this home, and oh no, I don't want to put an extra $30,000 on my $600,000 loan in order to uh, secure my
save
future
energy.
bills, my future costs, and keep it down. It's just silly not to
And
be.
also it's the convenience. I know I have battery backup on my house, and I mean, it's kind of funny, actually. I was just pointing out to one of my children. I asked him if the grid was on today, because I thought we had gone out. I don't actually know, because most of the things in my house run. The only thing that doesn't run is the electric furnace, but I have wood backup, so it doesn't matter. And but I have this little Christmas tree, one of those little ones that has uh it's just a tiny one that has the little, I want to say, it's not like lights, but it's has the strands coming through it, so the lights shine through and they change gently. It's just this little
Yeah,
tiny thing. I have it connected to the grid over top of my piano. I have one special one that's on the grid
oh,
circuit only,
and that's
so
what
that,
tells you. Yeah,
and yeah, so at a glance I can see, oh, that's not running, the grid is out.
yeah.
That's how fast the switchover is, because I have a Magnum system, and my switchover literally is a slight dim, and then all the power is right back there. So I have my internet, I have my phone system, so we're watching Apple TV. And our internet service provider has a battery backup on their tower. So I have 4 hours generally before. So as long as the power goes back up within 4 hours, I still have internet.
Yeah.
So it's quite good usually. Although I told them when they initially installed that thing, it was only maybe an hour and they thought it was 4. So I kind of told them how they needed to design it. I said, you need a better backup on that system. And because, for people like us, we were one of the only ones around here that they could know that.
Yeah.
Because when the grid was out, these other people were out too.
Now, who are you going to call Evolve Green?
Right?
Yeah.
We're here in Marchand, Manitoba. We got 2 locations, my home, and then, of course, the office, right? So, yeah, they definitely knew. And we're actually on 2 different feeds for hydro. So, because here at my home, I have 5 kilowatts off grid, plus I have my battery backup, and then I have 5 kilowatts on grid. And then I have the grid. And that's because back when we built this house, and this is a log house. I don't know if you can see that behind me. I'm going to turn a little. All right, there. See the logs? Going the wrong way. Back when we built this house, the banks were not as into off-grid. They thought it was different wiring. And of course it isn't. It has nothing to do with that. So they made it a point when they mortgaged us to say that, no, it had to have a grid. So we did have to put this grid in anyway. So we utilize it all the way to whatever we want to do with it. So in other words, we use it, and we put grid tie into it, and then we have battery backup, and we have straight off grid too. So in our case, that's why we ended up that way. So we literally were off grid first and then went on grid, but not by choice.
Yeah, only because they made you.
Yeah, but you know what? It's okay. We have the best of all worlds, really, when it comes to this house. Yeah. But I mean, if you wanted to go off grid, heat pump's really a good way to go. Or you could do forced air. Or you could do a forced air system with propane even. A lot of people don't realize that propane, you can run your dryer. You can run all the large loads in a house. So the dryer, the oven, the heating system, the hot water tank. And then, of course, you can just use a small solar system to power the rest of the house. So you can really do it a lot cheaper, especially if you're building anyways, then you have to buy all those things on the onset. So it's just a yearly lease. I know one of our customers has roughly 1,100 square feet, and she did all those things. And her system is like a 3 kilowatt system. I mean, it's quite small, 1 battery bank. It's pretty interesting in a 48 volt system. And then, of course, inside the house is just regular power. It's just 120, 240. So, it's better than grid actually, because it holds that 240 nice and solid. Anyways, Brent, I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today's show and talking to us about that exciting development from the federal government. I'm really excited about that. I feel like it's really the best way to get people back to work. I really, it's not just going to help our, Evolve Green, but it is going to help potentially so many different industries and get people working, which is really
need the economic growth right now in this country for sure that's going to bring too. We
need to get people back working, and I think even the childcare piece is huge too, right? It's really going to help people to get back working. For mothers and fathers, because sometimes it's fathers that stay home now too, right? Mm-hmm. People need to get back on their feet. So I'm really excited about how that's going to impact Evolve Green, but also everyone else. And it's going to be in every community, right? It's one way to get the help to everybody in all industries and businesses in this individual communities. And then when people are spending that money, then the businesses are paying their people and they're spending their money locally too. So it's really, economically speaking, it's just going to be amazing. Anyways, that's it for today's show. Thank you, Brent. We'll see you next time on Evolution Greenworks.